Hello, everyone, and welcome into our Six Screen Sunday program. I know you're going to enjoy the programs today. We've got a number here still left on the six screens. We just heard from Scott Walton with his program, Knowing God, after leaving the Watchtower. Now, we have Anne Marie, she's out of California, and she's a former Jehovah's Witness, and she hosts this program. What we try to do here on our Sunday afternoon program is get people who may have been involved with the Watchtower to come on and tell their story and how they were treated in the Watchtower. And it can be good, it can be bad. We want to hear everything. So that opportunity exists for you today. I'll put the telephone number on the bottom of the YouTube and Facebook screen. So if you are in the mood to tell your story of being in the Watchtower, we'd love to have you. But let's bring Anne Marie on. Anne Marie, hello, Anne Marie.
Hello, my brother Rick. Happy Six Screen Sunday. How are you and Susan doing?
Well, we're doing very good today. Yes, indeed. It's I got the window open. It's not really hot up here, but a nice. Well, it's kind of a sunny, cloudy day, but it's nice. Some of the leaves are still nice and colorful, so that's always nice, Anne Marie. But you know what's really nice too? It's really nice to see the Watchtower. It's really nice to see the Watchtower caving in, and we are seeing so much evidence of that, Anne Marie. It's really great.
Absolutely, my brother. I am seeing more and more videos posted by those who are really into broadcasting to all of us what is going on, how desperate they are, how many really are leaving, how many are getting ready to leave, calling it the mass exodus. Remember, we talked about this like 15 or more years ago. I asked you, do you feel like this is coming? And you said, oh, yes. And I didn't see it at the time because it looked like Watchtower, you know how they always are. They're like a slithering snake, no matter what bad news comes out about them or, you know, what ugly truth comes out. They always seem to slither right through it with their smiling, theocratic smiles, acting like they're so spiritual and so godly. But boy, I can't believe when we look back, Rick, the evidence that has been coming out, just like Luke 8:17 says, nothing hidden that won't become known.
Well, listen, I keep saying all the time that the Watchtower organization right now, they're on life support. They're in intensive care unit right now, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get through this crisis that they're currently experiencing. And it is a crisis. The Watchtower really is all over the map, as we mentioned last night. They're really the people, the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves, the rank and file, are very confused. And why wouldn't you be? The Watchtower is very wishy-washy on a lot of their policies and procedures. And I'll give you one just off the top of my head here. I'll go with the idea of women now being able to wear slacks. And, that came out about a year ago. And women in the organization could never, as we all know, could never wear slacks or a pantsuit or anything along those lines. And all of a sudden, within the last year, the Watchtower says, fine, the women can now wear slacks. And now reports coming in here to the six screens are showing that they still can wear slacks, but the Watchtower is trying to tighten up the arrangements for what they're going to wear. One time they said you could really let loose and the man didn't have to wear a tie or a jacket. And now they're trying to say in some countries, see, they send off these trial balloons. Now they're saying in some countries they prefer that the women would not wear, slacks to the convention and that men would dress a little more appropriately. So here they go, they loosen the reins and they tighten them right up again. That would confuse people, wouldn't it, Anne-Marie?
Well, like one of our Six Screen family members often says, they're confusionists. And it's like, I don't know, when you and I were young in the Watchtower, they were extremely strict and we accepted it as being absolutely appropriate. The dress code was that every brother should look like a high-class lawyer and every sister had to look like a high-class lawyer secretary. always had to wear nicely done hair, nicely done tailored clothes, always high heels, always had to be wearing nylons. You had to be perfect, and you couldn't even show your toes. Then they let you show your toes if you were wearing your nylons. And now that's why I didn't even know my neighbors that I grew to be great friends with were Jehovah's Witnesses, because the men back when I was a kid always had to wear not just white dress shirts, they had to wear bright white dress shirts, and they had to wear conservative, toned down ties. And the neighbors that I was friends with, the brother, it turned out they were Jehovah's Witnesses. He was wearing colored shirts and loud ties, and the girl was always in bare legs. And every time they were dressed up, oh, we're going to a gathering. Oh, we're going to a wedding. I had no idea for 2 years they were witnesses because of how loosely they were dressed. And now the brothers don't have to wear ties or even a suit coat, and the girls can run around in pants and beards. I mean, what's next? Whoops.
Well, I'll tell you, Emery, it's so funny. You got me thinking, because at one time the dress code was really strict. And, as a younger man, I love the Beatles. I mean, you had to love the Beatles. And I loved their suits that they wore. They were velvet trimmed, and they were really nice. And I even got some of those Beatles suits. At the Watchtower, Kingdom Hall, they didn't really like it. I wouldn't get up on the stage with it, but I would wear it. But, no one ever really gave me any real trouble about it. But they wanted you to have like a conservative suit. They didn't want velvet on the pockets and on the trim and all that. But to make a long story short, what I wanted to say is I was reprimanded once. I saw this really neat suit that I bought. It's beautiful. It was dark forest green. And I loved it. I loved unconventional cut suits. So this thing had military straps on it. I was only in my early 20s, and it had like a belt that you wrapped around. And I can remember giving a talk on the stage with that suit on. And boy, right after the talk and after the meeting, of course, they rushed me into the back room. Brother Farron, you shouldn't be wearing a suit like that up on the stage. Now, it was appropriate. I had a tie on. But boy, they went ballistic on me. Don't wear that suit. It's not what Jehovah's Witnesses wear. And then I remember a number of the brothers and sisters at one time, well, the brothers in particular here, but Madras, the Madras fabric, all that multicolor fabric that was really in back in the 1960s. And, you could wear it, but you wouldn't give a talk with it. And then, of course, the brothers got into these Nehru suits, with that fancy like collar. Well, they didn't care for that either. So now it's, it's relaxed a lot. But at one time, like you said, it was strict.
Yeah, I remember the collar, but it's so cool that you were
I guess we got you breaking up there, Anne-Marie, for some reason. It's kind of googly. Yeah.
Oh no.
You're all right now. No, you're good right now. But what we just did a little earlier, but you're good right now. Yeah.
Well, they had 65, 66, 67 were the really changing heavy duty mod style. The go-go boots, the Paisleys, and the loud styles, and the false eyelashes, and the white lipstick for women, and pink lipstick, and guys were getting lots of different styles available. And when you mentioned the shimmering different color suits, they were very popular among the Black brothers where I grew up in the ghetto, and they were getting popped because the younger teenager Black brothers were really into those. It was like the first time they actually enjoyed getting ready for the Kingdom Hall. And I remember sitting in the middle of a book study at a house, and this young brother maybe was about 14 or 15, and he had just gotten one of those, what they called rainbow suits, because they would shimmer in the light, and you would just see multi kind of different color. They weren't dull. They were really pretty nice. But boy, you couldn't have that. You couldn't have anything.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was something that, nobody really seemed to rebel against it at the time. We all went along with it. We all knew what the Watchtower allowed and what they didn't allow. And, even when it comes to beards, I had a friend in Florida that was so irritated. He wanted to have a beard. This is back in the 1980s. And he wanted to have a beard. And he came to me, he says, Brother Farron, he says, they won't let me give any talks. They won't. In fact, I even believe he told me they wouldn't let him answer during the Watchtower lesson either. And I says, why is that? And he had a little goatee. And he says, well, they don't like my little beard. And he says, I don't know what to do. I says, well, that's what they're requiring. If you don't shave it off, they're not going to let you do it. So, but he says, well, I really like it. But some brothers did get cut slack. They could have a beard. I had a friend because he had a skin condition of some type. When he would shave, his skin would get really irritated and red. So, he got a special exemption from the Kingdom Hall that he could have a beard. But, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I mean, sometimes they did bend the rules a little bit. But, boy, I'm so happy, Anne Marie, that I am out of there. I was mentioning that to Susan the other day, just to be able to have a freedom. The freedom is what we call it. And it's something that, all humanity wants. Who wants to be locked under the chains of some dictatorial, totalitarian group? And no one likes that. But we all seem to, boy, I'll tell you, the Watchtower is a master. I think about this all the time. How have they mastered the way of keeping people in line? And how have they mastered the way of coercing them out of money? This still is something that's a mystery to me. But hey, listen, I was in it. I did it. I followed their dictates and didn't really question it. But boy, as we look back now, we all have to say, what was going on with me then? But we did it, right, Anne Marie?
Oh, no doubt they did. They're masters of mind control and thought control, and they really, really monopolized everybody's deep-seated need to feel that they matter, to feel that they belong to a group, a tribe, a club, an organization where they are part of something important. And it's all about you go along to get along. And immediately from the get-go, they try to separate you from any outside influence that does not support the Watchtower mind control, program. So I think that is at the core. That's how they're able to get free labor and get people to turn on their own family members and get people to give up education and get people to give up the person they're really in love with and marry somebody approved by the Watchtower and get their money and get their property. They're able to always monopolize them. And the more they keep you in, the more they have made it, they've orchestrated the whole situation so that your entire life, every minute of your day and night, revolves around approval of the organization, aka Jehovah. And it's like, that does it. What does it? You're not allowed to have a thought or a choice outside of their approval. And so those who are not ready to submit and commit won't be part of it. They'll rebel. So that means that all of those that they can hold on to are totally committed. And the ones that are like PIMQs, physically in, but mentally questioning, or PMOs, physically in, mentally they don't want to be there, but they feel trapped. They're trapped. They don't know, most of them, they can't imagine life outside of the control of the Watchtower. It's heartbreaking. So we are blessed, my brother. Like you said, you wake up and you realize, I am free. That is the core need of every person, even animals. They want to feel that they have the freedom to be who God made them to be.
Well, good little narrative there. And you got me again thinking. Now, Emery, you were in sales. Of course, I'm in sales and been there all my life. And there's one thing that I have learned. When you sell a product, or if a person purchases a product, the person purchasing the product has to find a benefit in it. If you go to the store and you suppose you go to Target or Walmart, and you say, I want to buy a new pillow. So you go there and you say, boy, this is a nice soft pillow. I think I'll buy this pillow. Now you feel like you're going to benefit from that pillow. You feel like you're going to have a good night's sleep if you buy a new pillow. So there's a benefit in purchasing it. Now, all of us, as we go out and purchase anything in life, we have to benefit from it. You're not going to buy something that's going to make your life miserable. But what did we all benefit? This is what I ask myself. What did we really benefit from by becoming one of Jehovah's Witnesses? I'm even going back now and I'm trying to think, why was I attracted to it? What was I thinking I would benefit from? But I do understand my way of thinking on it. I wanted to learn about God. I really did. Ever since I was a young boy, I wanted to know about God and understand about Him and have knowledge about Him. So that attracted me. But I'm wondering, I don't think it was the godly desire that attracted people to the Watchtower. Some of them, and what got me thinking, what you just said, some people like to be controlled. I talked to one witness woman, and she said she left the Watchtower, but she kind of misses the disciplinarian way or the disciplined lifestyle. You have to be in a meeting in a certain way, a certain time, a certain day. Some people like that. Maybe some people like to socializing with others at the Kingdom Hall. Maybe others just were looking for friends. So I suppose there's a number of factors, but you really do have to benefit. And to have an organization that's controlling you from the cradle to the grave, you got to stop. If you're a witness listening in right now, are you really benefiting? Is your life enhanced by being one of Jehovah's Witnesses? Boy, I think not. Is that something, Emery? What do you think? Why did you?
Some of those people wanted parents to tell them what to do rather than grow up to be adults. It's a frightening and responsible world to have to be self-supporting, to think your way through your day, to have moral decisions that you have to make. Adulthood is not easy. And I think those that cling to that organization, some of them are avoiding true adulthood. And some of them, if they listen to the separate teaching of be no part of the world, they're getting all their information from the governing body, and they're really forging their own invisible mental chains themselves.
Well, I've heard that argument before, Pixie. It's a reason why a lot of people even go into the military. Some people really love military life. They love the discipline. They love the control. And even some prisoners, there are actually people that like to be in prison. They don't have to really have any dealings with the outside world. They don't have to worry about a lot of things. Everything's kind of set in place for them. And that seems to be one reason too why people get attracted to it. What attracted you to the Watchtower for you to stay in as long as you did, Pixie?
I was born into it. So by the time I was in my 20s, I said goodbye on a Thursday night and said, I'm going to college. And it's what I needed to do because I had to be a self-supporting adult and I had to have skills to do that. And my family had stressed that as well. So sometimes I stayed in it for my family because I had a large number, more family members were in it than not. I have some Methodists too, but and I think my little town helped me to mature, and my neighbors, my parents, the Baptists that took me in and fed me dinner about 2 to 3 nights a week. I met people that were good mentors to me, and I'm thankful for that. And the public library was right across the street. And when I did my parents' care, I kind of came back and thought maybe I'll get baptized and do all this stuff. But
I let the witnesses in because my parents wanted them there. That was their social group. The caregiver does what the patient needs, not what the caregiver wants.
Well, you know what Stockholm syndrome is, right? And
yeah.
well, we hear about that. We talked about it a couple of weeks back. But I believe what happens is a lot of people get bamboozled into this organization. And even at first, it might seem a little bit, at first they get love bombed and everyone loves them and they connect to it. And then they really begin to really follow all of the dictates of the organization. And they begin to really feel that this is, even though it could be a cult, it could be the mafia. But after you get settled into it, it's kind of hard to leave. And that happens too.
There's a certain comfort level because you understand what's expected of you in a meeting, and there's social that comes with the meeting, and sometimes there's a meal that comes with the meeting after the Thursday night or whatever, or on special events. But their blood policy at this age, if I fell and broke a hip, I'm getting a blood transfusion if they say I need to have it. So, that to me is a policy that I have to take into account. After the age of 50, we all have to look at that. And we should look at it at any age. Children die, too, of that terrible policy. But that's, it's comfortable. It's what you're used to. It's what your family's done for generations.
Oh, you get into a comfort level, Hey, I'm gonna throw this out. If anyone's out there, if someone's listening to the program right now on YouTube, Facebook, on our radio network, if you have a story to tell of being in the Watchtower, well, here would be the time to do it. I meant to mention last night, Anne-Marie, when we had the program last night, if anyone wanted to tell this story. So if you're listening in and you never really had an opportunity to tell your story of being in the Watchtower, well, by all means, this would be a great time to do it. So don't be bashful. Wouldn't it be nice, Anne-Marie, to get a brand new person coming in, calling in?
Absolutely. Or, this is just an open, gentle, welcoming invitation. Like we've noticed before, a lot of people, when they're listening to any one of the shows that you put on, if they want to comment, a comment leads to an experience and an explanation and how they felt and what they went through, what their mama went through, what their child went through. They end up realizing that they really want to share. And then when it's time, like this is the show, it's all for you, maybe feel kind of maybe pushed or expected. And we just want to extend a gentle, welcoming invitation. If you want to share anything, this really is for you. But I just wanted to answer your question after Pixie gave her really a great comment about afraid to adult. I think she's right on the money. People that have a problem with having to actually be an adult, which involves personal responsibility, taking personal responsibility, not needing some outside influence to tell you how to go through and make and do everything that you have to do in a day. What job you have, what kind of friends you have, what movie you can watch, what book you can read, how you dress, who you marry, how you raise your kids, how you spend your time. All of that is already determined and controlled by Watchtower because their congregants or their followers willingly accept being led by the nose. And it's like Pixie said, and I think that is a very valid point. I think that part of the issue is down deep. They don't want to be an adult because being an adult means you think about things, think of the pros and cons, think of the plan, and make a decision and stick to it. And don't let somebody tell you what you can do, what you shouldn't do, how you have to do it, how long to do it, and when to stop. I mean, aren't we glad that we realize that that's how we used to be? And now, oh, hell to the no, we are not going to do that anymore. But what I was wanting to answer before Pixie gave her beautiful comment was, we were not ministers. We were cult recruiters. Being a cult recruiter means we had very well trained means of recruiting, and we definitely use sales tactics. When you have to present the message of the Watchtower, any cult, you do it in such a way, like you said, Rick, to make it look like it benefits the person you're trying to recruit. Show them how they can benefit. And the major one that we got, that we shared at the door, or anybody we spoke with, was, people have problems in life. And it was always presented like, well, the reason we're having all these problems because this is Satan's world, and wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have any more crime or sickness or, divorces or children out of control, whatever the problem was, whatever earthquake or war or shooting that happened recently, everything was because it's Satan's world, and the answer to all of your little problems are in this little organization. All you have to do is just join the organization and serve this God they say they represent, and everything will just be fine. And they fall for it because it's very cleverly done. And the only reason I know that they're so clever, yes, I was in sales. Yes, I had to go to conventions, sales conventions. And the first one I went to, I almost dropped my teeth on the floor because it was exactly, except for the prayer and the songs of the Watchtower, it was identical to your average circuit assembly. Well, back then, all the demonstrations and the encouraging talks and all the examples of how you can do better, and all the examples of those who were doing better and saying how you could do better too, and all of the camaraderie, and everybody dressed so nice, and the sessions were just so long, and then they have the break. And I'm sitting there listening to how they're kind of trying to light a fire under your butt, I used to say. And I feel like I'm sitting in a circus assembly. It's what they are.
Well, you ready, Anne Marie?
All about
yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
What was it, dear? I'm sorry. I talked so much. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. It just went off for a second, then came back on again. So, no, you were in sales, and you know that you have to benefit. But, I got some information, Anne Marie, and really when I see how rule-based the Watchtower is, I wonder why people would still stay in here. In fact, got some information, came into the 6 screens here, and a woman was telling me that what it was recently. She went to a funeral. It was like it wasn't a funeral at that point. What happened? A Jehovah's Witness woman in the congregation. She was disfellowshipped, and that mother's daughter was murdered. And so what the sister in the Kingdom Hall wanted to do is go over to the sister's house. I mean, knowing that she was disfellowshipped, and comfort her. I mean, really, you just lost your daughter and she was murdered. I mean, that's quite drastic. That's a shock to the system. So, some other brothers and sisters went over too. There were other family members who were Jehovah's Witnesses that were there at the disfellowship mother's house. So anyways, the sister I got the information from went over there. And, she felt a little awkward, but she said, I'm going to go there regardless if she's just fellowshipped or not. The poor woman just lost her daughter in a murder. So she went over to the sister's house, and there were some other witnesses there as well. They weren't talking to the mother, but they were talking to other family members and consoling them. But no one was really paying attention to the mother except this one particular sister. And there was a ministerial. And there was now this is cruel. You talk about a lot of these cruel things on your program on Saturday night, but this was cruel. So there was a ministerial servant there, and he was just about ready to become an elder. I mean, he was a mature ministerial servant. Go with that. So he's looking at the sister that's there talking to the disfellowship one. So he's kind of looking her over and like, you shouldn't be doing that. So he got her aside, and he said, you really shouldn't be talking to her because you just fellowship. This woman just lost her daughter, Anne Marie. And he's saying, well, there's other family members here. You can talk with them, but it's really not a good idea to be talking to the mother. How cruel is that, Anne-Marie? You know?
That's a cult for you.
You got it.
To understand, this is not just a religion that's kind of weird or strict. This is a very powerful, controlling, dictatorial cult. They do what cults do. And in a cult, it's all about conform and perform, very strict. Everybody has to fit in the same mold or you are in trouble.
Well, see, that's what I'm thinking about in this idea of how do you benefit. So here's the woman out of the goodness of her heart, and she has good feelings, even though the sisters that she wants to go console is just fellowship. Hey, let's face it, they put rules over to humanity. So here's a woman that really needs your help. I mean, are you really benefiting by an organization that's giving you dirty looks because you're talking to a woman who just lost her daughter? Because she's just and she's just fellowship, you shouldn't be talking to her. Geez, when I look back on the trail, Emery, and I pick up crumbs to see where I came from, I say, man, I came from a cult, like you would say, a bad organization, a rule-based organization.
What's really disgusting, my brother, is that the witnesses, you know how they gossip and they're so arrogant and self-righteous and judgmental and critical. The gossip would be, well, that's what she gets. You know, you're out of Jehovah's blessing, and look what happened to her daughter. You know, maybe if she had stayed faithful to Jehovah, this wouldn't have happened.
Oh, that's exactly.
No, they do that.
That's exactly. You got me laughing here. That's exactly what they would say. If she wasn't just fellowship, maybe your daughter wouldn't have been murdered. It had nothing to do with it, but they'd bring that up somehow. That the sister's experiencing these difficult times right now because of being disfellowshipped. They'd bring that up. I know they would.
They can turn anything, good or bad, to make them look good, to make them look right, and to make them more loyal to serving the organization and to listening to the controlling statements and policies of the governing body. Every little thing is either because you were faithful or because you weren't. Because I was wondering, I'm surprised I never heard of anybody being allowed to go to a disfellowship person's house for any reason. That must have been it. So it would get cemented into the brothers and sisters' brains. Look what happens. It's just like when somebody gets disfellowship and they commit suicide. I remember hearing from the podium so many times, do you see what happens when you leave Jehovah? You're not protected by his angels anymore. You're out there in Satan's world, and hey, when it happens to you, look, and everybody's like, oh yeah, boy, we better be faithful.
Oh, it's just nuts. I mean, how do you really make sense out of nonsense, Anne-Marie,
You get used to thinking that nonsense is sense. I used to believe every single word. When I look back, you would think I had some sense, huh, brother? Nope. I believed every single thing they taught. Everything. I don't care how crazy it is. I believe it. Go ahead, brother.
When I was a young witness at an assembly, I was so happy to make little witness friends. And I remember this family had 3 children about my age. And my dad was happy for me, and we were going to get with this family again because they were in our circuit. And something terrible, terrible happened. We all drove home from the assembly, and that entire family did not make it home. And I hadn't thought of that in a lifetime until now. So they give all kinds of nonsense about who has this blessing and who has that blessing. I learned as a very small child that was a wonderful, holy, delightful, fun-loving witness family. And there would have been my 3 witness playmates that would not have been the worldly children on my street who were very good association. But there would have been the witness kids. And they haven't been with us in a long time. So, real life, there was a rabbi that wrote a little book called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And life has all kinds of things where bad things happen to good people.
Well, that's right, Pixie. And in fact, I have that book as well. And it's unfortunate that a lot of bad things happen to people by being associated with the Watchtower. I'll give you another example right here. We've all heard of eating disorders. I'm sure anorexia is another one as well. I forget what they call it. But anyways, I get this information that came into the sixth grades. So there was a young woman, a sister, and she was having eating problems. She would, throw it all up and get rid of it, and she had an eating problem. And so consequently, she didn't know what to do. She didn't want to tell her family about it, but she really was bothering her because she knew something was wrong. She wasn't eating properly and throwing it all up. So what she did is one day she was in the ministry and she was working with an elder in service. And she figured, gee, I'll confide in him and I'll ask him if he can help me with my problem because I want to be normal. I want to eat food normally without having to have a problem with it. So anyways, the elder said that it could be spiritism. Now, this is crazy, right? This is his personal opinion. So he's identifying the eating disorder that this young sister has as spiritism. And it really freaked the sister out. She felt that she wasn't unfit to be in the ministry and she shouldn't really be out because, geez, if I'm being attacked by demons and spirits, this would be a terrible thing to even be in the organization. So she was really thinking about this. So she actually was told to do more praying, and study more publications, and this will really help you to find the solution to your problem. Now, the young girl wasn't expecting that. Read more publications, spend more time studying, and the spirits or the demons or whatever's causing your problem here is going to disappear. This is all nonsense. This is all nonsense.
That elder is an ignoramus and a moron. And he should not be in any position of authority with any minors or any humans, really.
And if the young girl, she didn't share this with me, but if she went to her mother and father, now if say the mother and father was staunch, I mean really loyal Jehovah's Witnesses, well, what do you think the parents would say to the young girl? What do you think they'd say, Pixie?
I don't know, but I know Princess Diana had bulimia, and it's a recognized medical condition. Here again, we're taking medical advice from people that didn't even finish high school biology.
Yeah.
It angers me. It makes me sad, but in cases like that, it just angers me.
Yeah, because people's lives could be affected by this. That's just a mental disorder of some type, I believe. And I mean,
there's physical things to it as well. And it affects the whole body, and it could be partly her environment, or it could be brain chemistry, or it could be what she's eating.
It could even be
from being food allergies and not bulimia if it was diagnosed properly.
Yeah.
But again, we got these morons and ignoramuses that want to make themselves authorities that have not spent 5 minutes in a book or a school. I'm sorry to go off.
Well, because that ticked me off too. If I had a condition that was really affecting my health, and you're really even afraid at times to bring it up to anybody, and then you bring it up to a crazy elder, and he gives you some answer like that. Well, he thought it was demons and spiritism that was causing this. I mean, what type of wacky advice is that? But it's the type of
wacky.
Yeah,
that defines wacky right there.
But
that's it.
There are people that would follow their instruction. This guy has no, in fact, I have to tell you, when I first moved back here from Florida, and I moved up here to come back to Massachusetts, and I was looking for a place to live. So I was living with some witnesses for a couple of weeks till it got settled. And the witnesses were having some trouble in their house. The husband, they were accusing him of being a pedophilia, not the congregation. They knew about things, but they wouldn't share it with anybody. But the wife came to me and my former wife and said that, there's a problem with my husband. He actually molested a child, and gee, I couldn't believe it because he was my friend. But and anyway, she made a comment in what you just said there, Pixie, got me thinking about it. You said these guys don't have any knowledge at all on the subject, but yet they're so willing to jump in the arena and give their 2 cents worth. Well, I'll tell you what. So the woman says to me that the husband was a pedophile, and she was really ticked off over it. And she says, she went to the elders about it, and they seemed to know what the solution was and how they were going to settle it. What do they know about how to help a pedophile? Well, what do they know about in encouraging family members that have been?
About it. I know that those men never change and should be on the gallows. And I know that the family member should take the dirty clothing of the victimized child to the police department as evidence. That's what I know about that.
Yeah, well, I don't believe, well, I know she didn't go to the police at the time, and I don't know whatever happened since then. But boy, I'll tell you what, I had a hard time believing it. And, because, when I was in the congregations, when I was in the congregations in Florida and even numerous congregations down there and also up here in New England, I never realized it was pedophiles and nasty-minded predators in the Kingdom Hall. I never thought of that. So, when someone says that, he's a pedophile and you know him, the first reaction is you don't believe it. But I mean, what do these people look like? What do they act like? You would never know what people do in their private, right? Jeez.
It's funny though, people do, if you question them long enough, people do tell you who they are.
Yeah.
And these people are hiding in plain sight, and a house of worship should be a safe place. And really, it's not, because it's full of critical people, gossips, criminals that should be behind bars. There's all kinds of people. They don't vet their people. Now, we rented a church for a history event, and I'm not used to being in a big, beautiful building like that, but I was getting ready to bring our catering in, and the people were there sweeping up from being Methodists and doing their thing. And I don't have children, but I pretended for a second like I did. I said, if I wanted to bring my child to your Sunday school, are your people vetted and bonded? And she says, oh, yes, they are. I said, oh, well, that's terrific news. Well, I've got to get my catering in here for our party. Thank you for renting to us. So this is one of the reasons they don't want the witnesses to go outside of their little bubble, because they'd find out that these other churches have standards that keep their children safe at a Sunday school environment.
Well, it's so difficult to even realize. And even my wife Susan here, when she was going to the congregation out in Illinois, and she asked her former husband, who was an elder, because she came across some papers that he had talking about how to handle child molesters, that molest kids in the Kingdom Hall, in the witness world. And so she approached him and said to him, is there pedophiles in the organization? And he flatly denied no. But, she saw the paperwork that he had from the Watchtower. So he made some comment to the effect that, have you ever seen one? And you have to say, no, I haven't. So it's almost believable that they don't until you really start digging into it. And one of the congregations up here in Lowell, Massachusetts, that I attended had five pedophiles in that hall, if you can believe that. Yeah.
Does anybody remember that they actually used to have what they called a prison ministry, where they were actually recruiting known child molesters in the prisons and bringing them into the Watchtower?
You are correct.
Yes, and Marie, I do remember that. It's Matthew here. Can I speak up, Rick?
Of course.
Go ahead, Matthew. You have the floor.
Well, it's good to be with you, Pixie. It's good to be with you, Anne-Marie and Rick. I remember getting an assignment into a deep bush prison out in a very rural setting. It took a day to get there. And of course, this was part of that initiative of recruiting persons within the prison system. And of course, those persons are very au fait with how criminal networks operate. So you get these individuals coming into the organization, and of course, their systems of survival doesn't essentially change. The psychology is still there, but now you appoint these persons to key guardian stations of authority within the organization, and you can see exactly how this has developed to the kind of complex problem that we are seeing manifested in, from our experience, Watchtower organization. Absolutely. I had an overseer, two overseers, almost in succession, who had active CA practices going on. This is what they were doing. People who are willing participants, even families involved, knowing that their underage, groomed, infatuated children are participating and have an enjoyment with it. This is the mind job that's being done. And I remember with the one person who was finally put to prison, who was my overseer. And I remember persons in the branch, key figures, saying, well, as soon as so-and-so comes out of prison, we are going to welcome that individual with open arms. I probably mentioned this story, haven't I?
I don't remember.
Yeah, so that's the case. So now you've got somebody who's being caught, goes there, and it's the strange idea that they're just going to come straight. In fact, they say that they'll welcome them right into the branch. And I'm flabbergasted by that.
Matthew, thank you so much for validating that, because this very rarely comes up, and I'm always hoping that somehow, some way, a trusting Watchtower follower will at least hear that Watchtower actually had a prison ministry recruiting even murderers, but they were recruiting child sexual predators. And what's really, really sad, after they welcome them into the organization, they don't tell the congregants that there's a pedophile among you. You have to keep quiet, or else you get in trouble for slander and causing divisions. And when the poor victim gets victimized by the child molester that the elders usually do know about, sooner or later they know, you have to keep your mouth shut, because you don't want to bring reproach upon Jehovah's organization. If that is supposed to be God's blessing, how in the world can anybody knowing the truth actually think that Jesus or God would say, oh yeah, keep your mouth shut, let the child molester have his fun with my little innocent lamb?
Anne-Marie, can I give you another layer to this? Because I'll tell you, are you familiar about the PQR, Personal Qualifications Report System?
Go ahead.
So a PQR is usually done between 3 months or 6 months for circuit overseers or persons that are like selected for prison work. This has been my experience, is that they will select an elder who has a history of child abuse. And that person is now incentivized because there is supposedly the spiritual catharsis. The person who has been forgiven much loved more. But it's used as a loyalty. It's put in front of that person's face. In fact, even a circuit overseer, when they go through the PQR and they're selected as a circuit overseer, the first thing they see on their circuit overseer file is their PQR. Now, they say that that's to remind them to be humble. But in fact, what it is, it's a way to keep that person loyal, because they say, see what a scumbag you are? If you're out of line, this is going to hit the fan, because you are going to lose Jehovah's favor. And within that system, within that train network, you go, yeah, that's the spiritual logic. Absolutely. That's how you buy people's loyalty.
Yeah, it's been brought out that if you want to, quote unquote, progress or climb that theocratic ladder in the Watchtower, they want to make sure they always have control of you. So you play the game, be a good company man, be a good, Gestapo agent, but play according to the rules or you are going to pay. So, wow.
Yes, that's right.
I'm so glad you came on and validated this, because it has to come out. A lot of people don't know this, and we very rarely talk about it. Imagine Jehovah's representatives actually going to the prison to recruit child molesters, and then the poor child that gets molested or raped or sodomized is told to shut up. The parents are told, shut up.
Yeah, or the mind job is that they're looking forward to the person coming out of prison and reestablishing their relationship because they've been groomed so much. Now, Anne-Marie, you say validation. The validation is in the court cases, which the transcripts exist for.
We know it, but how many active followers, how many Watchtowerites would even consider thinking about looking at court transcripts? They won't go on YouTube. They're always saying that we're the liars. Ugh.
Yeah. Until they get a position because some overseer was elected, because they fell into a situation where there was a liability, and that overseer is now eliminated, and they get the young 20-year-old or the 25-year-old to replace them, and they get down on their knees thanking Jehovah as to, that they're the next Solomon, the next young Solomon that's come into that position. And then the first assignment is to destroy the fire, which is a test of loyalty. Yeah, it's the test of loyalty. Yeah.
And if anybody suspects, I'm always thinking of our dear Fran and Joe, the sweetest, most loving, humble, generous, kind people I have ever met in my life. And all they did was, when they heard that there were pedophiles within the organization, they didn't know what to think, and they asked in confidence. A dear friend, the one who brought them into the organization, just asked him. I think he had been a circuit overseer, but he was their close personal friend. They didn't go around talking to others about what they had heard. They asked him personally and privately if this was true. And then this guy goes behind their back and calls their 4 children who are grown and says, you better really watch out for your parents. In fact, I think it's better you stay away from them, because they're turning apostate. They're talking like apostate, and they've lost all their children because they heard. They heard, and they're full of pedophiles. It's what an older brother who's dead now, I forgot what his name was, but he called it a pedophile paradise. Oh no, he's not dead. Bill Bowen, I believe, said it. It's a pedophile paradise, because pedophiles talk to each other. They communicate with each other. I mean, like a black light, water seeks its own level. And they know that all you have to do is play the game, put on that theocratic smile, dress like a witness, talk like a witness, and it's like a free-for-all.
So there's 2 things I would like to ask, Anne-Marie, and it depends if you feel comfortable. But with Fran and Joe, that circuit oversteer, I wonder, the thing that jumps into my head is, I wonder how he was incentivized. Because in my case, when it was now someone on the Gilead instructor level, or somebody in a deep fiduciary level, those type of persons, I discovered, had active, open, unresolved cases, or CA. That's what I discovered.
I didn't even think of that, because when it comes down to it, you're either loyal to the corrupt evil, twisted cult, or you're really, truly trying to do the right thing. And I think you are absolutely correct. He had to make a choice. They're asking questions you're not supposed to know, and they get labeled as wicked apostates. Oh my God, Matthew, once again, thank you so much. That makes so much sense.
I appreciate your work week in, week out. I wanted to ask Rick a question if he's comfortable, please, and it's to do with evidence. And at his discretion, if he wants to answer or not, it's up to him. But I wanted to ask him, if you have evidence, recordings, and it's just a mountain of evidence, the problem that I personally see, and I specifically refer to Rick's case where he goes into a judicial committee and he records it. So it's that kind of thing where you've had to be clandestine about it, but you're going, geez, if I don't do this, I'm just going to be seen as a lunatic. I'm going to accumulate the data here. The problem is, as soon as you release that information with those names that are identifiable, that puts a target on your back, and you've got governments that even struggle to deal with this sovereign entity called Watchtower when it gets defensive and it gets combative. There must be a means of an independent verification body that can look at that evidence safely without having to put it onto YouTube or Rumble or somewhere on the internet, where now they can say, well, we're going to charge you for damages of libel, slander, even if it's substantial, verified evidence. This is how they can swing it. And now you're in exile. So I'm wanting to know, have we got to a stage, at least in America, where there can be an independent body that is working as a legally sanctioned verification facility to verify evidence? Rick, over to you. I don't know if that's a difficult one.
Well, so with the question, what would the question be? Narrow right down, Matthew. I mean,
it's having a facility to have evidence verified without getting into a situation where, when you release that information, you're now a target.
All right.
I wish I had a spirit board to contact my late sweetie, who was an attorney, but I don't have a spirit board to ask him. So I believe the correct answer might be the Justice Department, but I don't know.
Well, let me answer the question. They do have, in other words, if you well, let's suppose you were in the mafia, or even I suppose if you were in some gang, MS-13 or something like that, and you saw some horrific things that took place, and now you're going to go rat, as the term would be, about what you saw, and you're going to tell these people that what happened is totally bad, criminal, whatever. So these people, there is the Justice Department, Pixie's right with that. They would put you in the witness protection program. In other words, because you're going to be a target, as you just mentioned, Matthew. You start, especially from the mafia, some of these really bad gangs. You rat on them, they're going to come get you. And so what the witness protection program does, they operate under the Department of Justice, and what they would do is they would make it possible for you. They'll pay your expenses. They might even want to change your looks. They'll tell you how to dress. They'll say, well, look at, you don't have a mustache. Maybe you should get a mustache. Maybe you should get a wig. Maybe you should wear glasses if you haven't worn them in the past. We're going to make you look different. And they'll give you the expense money to move to another location of the country away from the people that you ratted on. So there is a service. I believe the United States Marshals handle that, but it's called the Witness Protection Act. Do they have that in South Africa?
Rick, I want to just say thank you for answering that first of all. Thank you very much for diving into that. And then to answer your question, in all fairness, in South Africa, it's theoretical. you know, we have certain protections of information, we have protections of people, but it's something I say to individuals. I say, you know, South Africa has a perfect law, just like USA has a perfect law. But having a perfect law and what actually occurs practically are two polar opposites because you have a police department that is saturated with criminal things and looks at, oh, well, this is freedom of religion or freedom of speech, or we don't want to touch this, or our experience with Jehovah's Witnesses or high control religions is just so nasty. We will tell you from our own detectives, yeah, you've walked into a syndicate, you better protect yourself. I'm told by the police, they say, get familiar with using a gun because there is a target. I have the detective sliding the gun over the desk and saying to me, take a look at this weapon. You should become familiar, go to a firing range and know how to use it because you are a target. Get it in your head. This is what I'm told in South Africa. So that's the extent of the protection that he's telling me, and he's not being nasty. He's not trying to be overly dramatic. He's telling me, I'm giving you the best advice I possibly can in one of the most corrupt police departments in South Africa, because the reality is government is divided. It's got several different ways of governance here, and yet we have interwoven cartels that go from Cape to Cairo. And yep, that's it. So that's the situation, Rick.
Yeah, well, I can see. I mean, even here in America, you know, if you were in a position, you know, if you, for example, I mean, if you had a business and you know you had to make heavy deposits every day, you know, there'd be some. Even the police here would tell you, as long as you have a good record, you don't have a criminal record, that it might be good to carry a gun, just like in your country. So that's not prohibited. You know, gun laws in America are pretty tough, but as long as you can pass the qualifications, you can protect yourself with a gun. And if someone comes to attack you or hurt you, then you have the right to shoot them. But you know it's a touchy area because the laws are so funny about that. You know, you might shoot a criminal and then you'll end up going to jail. So you'd want to be careful. That's you know, so that's something people have to think about.
So you're 100% there, Rick. And of course, I'm not endorsing this, or I'm just saying that's been the lived experience. You know, I go to a police department, I say, what protections are in place? And he says, let me spell it out in a way that you will never forget, you know. And yeah, that's been the impression. You would sort of think that they say, oh, there is this facility or there's that facility that's.
Well, Matthew, let me ask you a question, Matthew, because I mean you brought this up, and I've heard you say similar things on the program before. Do you feel like you might have information or shared information about what you know in the Watchtower that is creating a little dilemma with you?
Yeah, absolutely. But I've connected that to the police department, and they basically said, look, how do we put police resources onto this? And I know that they're telling the truth. I have worked this territory up and down. How can you get a criminal cartel that breaks into the South African Navy and steals weapons from the Navy, the people who are supposed to protect the shores and the ocean, and are dealing in uranium trade agreements and all of this very touchy stuff. I know that there's pornography rings. I know that there's dog fights. I know that there's gangsterism in the territory. I've been preaching to these people for years. I know what's going on in the territory. I know what kind of bodies are coming out of the high density areas. I've been living this for how many years? So yes, I appreciate when they say, look, we record down, but Matt, you got to realize that we are stranded. the detectives are being paid the same as any other constable here. They're not really incentivized, and many are demoralized, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
And that's unfortunate. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you.
That answers you about being evasive.
Well, no, I'll tell you what. I mean, even at times people said, Rick, you speak out against the Watchtower and you got to be careful and you got to be watching behind your back. And, one point there a few years ago, I was quite concerned about it. But what happened is back in 2022, a strange thing happened when I was on the air doing a program in the summer months of, well, it was in August, it was August 31st, 2022. And what happened is I got a knock on the door while I was doing my radio broadcast. And it really scared me. It spooked me a little bit because I went to the door and I looked out the peephole in the door and I saw a rifle pointing right at the door. And it really scared me. So I figured, gee, these are, they could be Watchtower operatives, some goons from the Watchtower to come out and tell me to back off. So I didn't want to open the door. And I couldn't see through the peephole that clearly. All I could see is an automatic rifle pointing right at my door. So what I did was they kept saying, open the door, open the door. I said, no, because I couldn't really see. My wife had a wreath, one of these like flowery wreaths on the hiding the peephole. So I couldn't see who it was. So I said, I'm not opening the door. So they said, open the door, open the door. And then they said, it's the police. It's the police. And so I'm thinking, well, the criminals could say they're police just to get the guy to open the door. So I said, well, show me a badge, put it up to the peephole. So he showed me a badge. And so, okay, I saw they were police. So I let them in. And what happened, Matthew, is some operatives of the Watchtower, they called the local police and they told them that I was holding my wife hostage. So they sent, so they were trying to really intimidate me somehow. So anyways, the police came. There was like 6 of them. They came in. My wife was sleeping at the time. And, this is right on a Saturday night during the program. So when I woke her up, I said, Susan, I said that the police want to speak with you. So she was very calm and collective about it. And they took her outside in the hallway. They didn't want me around. And they asked her, is your husband, is he holding you hostage? And she says, absolutely not. My husband treats me like a queen, she said. So, they said, well, we can't. So, I couldn't believe it. I really, really couldn't believe this was all going on, Matthew. So they all had, they're dressed like SWAT team. They had bulletproof vests on and armament and all of this. So, the 6 policemen came in. We had a good discussion. I told them I was doing a radio broadcast and you could hear some of this going on in the background, So I said, there's a very controversial program. They had the whole area here taped off with caution tape and nobody could get in. It's unbelievable. And so anyways, they said, well, these people bother you? I said, well, they do intimidate. There's some operatives that do intimidate me. So, they have it on record down there. But, they're not going to, I don't believe they're going to come out and beat me and, bump me off because, it's now known, if they find me dead out in the driveway, someone's going to know exactly who did it. I know I watched how operative, but I don't fear that. And I'm not trying to make up a story here of embellishment, but it was quite an experience. I'll tell you, I'll never forget talking about that for the rest of my life,
Yeah. Well, Rick, I appreciate stories like that because, yes, we don't have a morbid fear of death necessarily. We people of faith, that's how we've gotten involved. And I've had my fair share of semi-automatic weapons pointed at my head. I've had to kneel in the bush under a false arrest. I had an incident of a Mercedes with a bomb inside it, driven up, and police coming in and storming where I was stationed. These kind of dangers we're not unfamiliar with. But of course, now when you've got persons crying for help, or you've got family that are immersed in a captive situation, how do you not react with some kind of conscience or say, I can't actually stand by. I can sacrifice my own life, but now when it's somebody else's, I quickly become very sober.
Well, Matthew, the thing is, see, here's what you got. You got an organization now that really is money mongering, and the Watchtower loves money. They're a business, and they're doing everything they can to keep as much money as they can. And according to some of the information we got in the 6 screens in the last 6 months, with them now opening up that asset management company in Ireland, we now realize, according to a Irish newspaper, I mean, like the Wall Street Journal would be in America, the Irish newspaper on business reported the Watchtower as having it would be worth over $7 billion. So you have a lot of money at stake. So you're a whistleblower, and you're blowing the whistle on them. I mean, money people would do strange things. So I'm giving that a thought as well. But I wouldn't be surprised. I can't tell you for sure that Watchtowers bumped people off. I mean, I have no facts to prove it. But it certainly wouldn't be. I wouldn't discount it entirely. I'm sure there's some people in the past that, in fact, I've had people call a program and they know of instances where that's happened, but they could never provide solid truth. So you can't present it as a fact. But I mean, this organization, they're pretty bad. They could go to all means to keep this kingdom alive, so to speak.
Well, yes. Well, it's always the plausible deniability, and to be safe in broadcasting, we've got to say we can't be categorical. All we can do is report a pattern. We can't say, "Oh, I have absolute 100% evidence that this is the case." All that you can do is you can present a pattern, and you can present under oath what you've experienced. And I've experienced a situation in the branch where you've got hostiles who've got weapons in a branch, and it gets discovered. And then suddenly, of course, the mechanism for this kind of situation is now saying, no, we never endorsed this. This person has been acting on their own. But while it was quiet, it served us very, very well. But now that it's uncovered, we never endorsed this. So it's always the third-party distance that enables these things to occur. I've lost my friends, Rick. That's been the pattern. Whether you say it's absolutely nefarious, it just seems to be this pattern that when somebody sees a liability, a real bad one, then this is what occurs. And especially if you have got persons coming in where there is high monetary stakes involved, you can actually see, man, I cannot rule this out. But I can comment on Ireland. I can comment on it because one of the key directors there I worked very closely with. And I can say, thankfully, Ireland took note. I didn't approach them. Ireland approached me and gave me a huge amount of time. I was blown away by it. And I think there is a possibility.
Well, I've got two instances, Matthew, in my 20 years of doing this broadcast that is suspicious. And you weren't with us back then, but we had a man, excuse me, that would call in. He was a Bethelite in New York, and his name was Johnny the Bethelite. That's what we called him. That wasn't his real name. But this man would report. He had his own program here on the 6 screens, and he would do it from a coffee shop in Brooklyn, so that no one would catch him doing it at Bethel. And consequently, he would talk about some of the stuff that was going on. And he talked about the kiddie porn rings. He talked about the governing body being involved in all kinds of trafficking and money laundering and what have you. And then he was with us for about 10 years. And all of a sudden, he would call my wife and I at least 2 or 3 times a month, share things with us, off the air, plus share things on the air. And then suddenly he just disappeared, gone. The pattern was broken. No longer did anyone hear of him, didn't come on. We were good friends. I never met him in person, but he just disappeared. Then we had another man that did a program here on the Six Screens. He was a professor at a university in New York. And he came on and he talked about the witnesses. He talked about how cults operate. And he was with us for a couple of years. And everything was going fine. We'd talk all the time together. I knew him personally. And what happened is he never showed up. No one ever knew what happened. So, you question. It could just be some type of a coincidence, but you mentioned a word that got me thinking about it, Matthew. You said the word pattern. A pattern was broken, If you had a friend,
Yeah.
if you had a friend that was calling you, every week for 10 years, and then all of a sudden you don't even hear from that person, the first thing you think is, did the person die? I mean, we didn't have any, argument or anything. So that's what you would think. So, people have called into the program and said, well, I think that fellow that used to come on your program, Rick, I think he's in the Hudson River in New York City. I mean, you don't know what these people would do,
So, Rick, you also mentioned things to me that get my mental gears going. I think it's very, very important, if we're trying to work towards justice or trying to work towards freeing people up, that we are grounded in reality and not necessarily getting sucked into the temptation of making things too sensational, because that becomes counterproductive. It actually closes more doors and it stops things up. I can say that happily in Ireland, it's almost like the chess pieces have been played, where so many assets have been set up under those control companies, that actually now Ireland police and detectives could, if they wanted to, freeze assets. And that would be a huge thing, because now if they get wind of that and they listen to a program like this and they suddenly go, oh, we better pull out of Ireland, it's going to raise too many flags. It's going to raise too many flags, because their policy about children in Ireland is very strict. And the intelligence that Irish police have, Rick, you can be encouraged, it's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
But again, you have that situation like Norway. It's not unheard of that you have governments that stand up to it, or you could say, well, it gets to a head where Ireland says this is intolerable and we're now going to make a move. And, Watchtower pulls strings from United Nations, or it, pays its way and it gets out.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen it.
Oh, no, we've seen it. Hey, we're going to bring Anne-Marie in here. We're going to be going to the news here shortly, Matthew, but let's bring Anne-Marie in and hear what her thoughts are on this, Anne-Marie. So we'll go about 5-10 more minutes. I'm going to wrap it up by Anne-Marie, but Matthew's got some thoughts we want to share with you. So come on, Anne-Marie.
Thanks for connecting.
Thank you, Rick. Rick, I'm really hoping that you can come up with a good thumbnail for this show, because there are two issues specifically that I'm thinking of that were really talked about, and we don't talk about this too much. And any Jehovah's Witness that might be searching, I would like them to latch on to this show and listen to so many great points that were brought out. I'm just hoping there could be a good thumbnail. Matthew, I can't thank you enough. You want to share your final thoughts when we need to close the show?
Well, let's have something back. Anne-Marie, I appreciate your input and your solidarity week after week. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of effort. But if you want, it's up to you. My email is on my channel. If you want a thumbnail made and Rick wants to approve it, send me images or the brief my way, and I'll make you a thumbnail.
Oh, that's really great. Well, if Rick doesn't mind, I'm sure he doesn't, maybe you could think of a good thumbnail that's, not just like Watchtower, involved in modern, money laundering and recruitment of pedophiles, something, short and sweet, but to the point that will grab the attention, you could send it directly to Rick's email, which is jwworldnews@gmail.com. That's jwworldnews@gmail.com. And Rick checks his email regularly, even though he's busier than a one-armed paper hanger. He keeps going. Thank you so much. What did you want to add, my brother?
So, Anne-Marie, that's it. I've got Rick's email, and so I will look at this ex-JW witnesses share their story of being in the Watchtower and look at the content, and you specifically want a thumbnail to do with the money laundering side that can catch attention that isn't going to trigger.
Yes, and the recruitment of pedophiles. We almost never talk about it. Almost never does it come up. In all the years I've been on Six Screens, we don't talk about it. And, I had no idea they actually did this. And in this particular show that we're doing right now in closing, you came on and said, yes, this is what you validated it. So anytime we've ever talked about it, we just talked about it, but you came on and validated it, verified it, cemented the surety that this is a fact. And, they all know that you're not supposed to talk about it. So, yeah, it would be great. Watchtower involved in money laundering and recruitment of pedophiles. To me, that will grab anybody, even a hardcore Watchtowerite. They wouldn't be able to help themselves unless they were completely brain dead.
Anne-Marie, thank you very much. Rick, thank you. And Pixie, also good hearing you. Let me sign off.
Yeah, she brings good stuff. Matthew, it was such a delightful and nice pleasure to have you come on. I want to thank everyone who is listening today, November 16th. I think it's the 15th, sorry. Sunday, November 15th. This is Six Screen Sunday, happens every other week. And this is Jehovah's Witnesses share their Watchtower story. And this was one of the best Sunday shows ever. On this show, people are welcome to share their experience in the Watchtower. And if there's nobody that wants to share, we always end up having a very lively, beneficial conversation. We need to go to Rick now, and I do believe it's time for JW World News Sunday edition. Rick?
Well, there you go, Anne-Marie. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to those that called in as well. We really appreciate them doing that and spending some time with us. Well, we're going to be going on to JW World News, and we're going to be giving you some news that might be somewhat enlightening to you. Got some new things I want to talk about that I didn't talk about last night. So that's coming up next right here on the Six Screens Tele-Network. But even after our news at 3 o'clock, actually 4 o'clock, we have the Christian Court. Now, don't leave us when the Christian Court comes on. We've got some really good questions. We have two theologians. They come on and they will answer some of these. They're scholars, actually, and they'll come on and answer some peculiar questions that Christians would ask. So by all means, join us for the Christian Court coming up after the news. And then at 5 o'clock, now you must have some questions on the Bible. If you left the Watchtower, you must have one time thought about scriptures. Well, we have a man, a former Jehovah's Witness, Jay Hess. He's answering your Bible questions today at 5 o'clock right here on the Six Screens Tele-Network. So stay with us. So let's end this program and go to the news. Thank you very much for being with us.